Redstone builds can take a long time to finish, but even though redstone can be quite difficult, that's not always the reason it takes so long. Sometimes a work-in-progress redstone build is so satisfying to look at that I'll spend ages just staring at it and not get any work done. It's like those really satisfying looping GIFs where everything just fits into place. That's what watching these redstone builds is like to me. So I've picked out 10 of my most satisfying redstone builds. And for the first one, we're in a library. Now, there doesn't seem to be any redstone in here, but you should know me by now. Of course there's redstone in here. We just go over to this bookshelf, take out that book, and the wall opens up to reveal a hidden enchantment library. Now come on, that has to be satisfying. The entire wall slides forward to hide the room, and I can actually show you what that looks like in slow motion thanks to the game speed mod. It's just so nice to look at. It's so smooth, and it's also really fast. And the redstone is a little bit on the messy side, but this was made for looks, not to be the most compact. And here I just have it hooked up to a redstone torch key. And that is just... it's just so satisfying. I could literally watch this all day. But of course, if I did do this all day, then I wouldn't be able to show you the rest of the builds. So sticking with the theme of enchanting stuff, you'd also need an anvil. Now this one isn't hidden away, but it is quite damaged. And I've got a bunch of armor here that needs enchanting, so I don't think it's going to survive all of that use. Oh, the anvil broke, but it just gave me a new one. And of course, there's a big machine behind this, so it keeps track of every time the anvil gets chipped. And then when the anvil eventually breaks, it takes away the floor, and then it bounces a new anvil back up to replace it. And then there's this thing in the back, which is just a giant storage unit that attaches to this. So when the anvil breaks, it's going to pull a new one from the storage, it's going to bounce it along this water stream with the slime blocks, then it goes into this elevator, and then it gets smacked into the storage by this slime block. And trust me, when I was testing this thing, it was just a lot of me watching it fling anvils into the void. It's just so satisfying watching the anvil skid along the water and then bounce off. The next one is a bit of a cliche, but it would just feel kind of wrong to not include it. Of course, it's the piston sand wave. And, well, I don't really need to explain myself here. This will just never not be satisfying. I mean, the concept is really, really old. People made it with mods before slime blocks or even pistons had been added to the game. Who would have thought that such a simple machine that just bounces sand up and down would be this satisfying? This next thing I built with my friend Avogado. This one is a piston extender, but it has its own little trick up its sleeve. How the hell do we power this piston? It doesn't seem like anything should be able to power it, and yet it's there, it's extended, and it can retract itself back into the floor again. You would never know it was there, and it's just satisfying watching this thing rise out of the ground and then pull itself back in. So I've taken away the floor so you can see what's going on, and yeah, this is the little secret it's hiding. This minecart is stuck in the floor, so when we push this detector rail into it, it powers the piston. But even when you know the secret behind it, it's still pretty satisfying to watch. This next build is simply put, a crafting table, but as you probably saw there, it's pretty fast. It's an instant hidden crafting table. You don't see it moving into place, it just appears, and then it also disappears very fast. Even when I slow down the game 8 times, it still appears instantly. And this is what it looks like when you run it at max speed. It's just, I don't know, it's just so satisfying watching a build run this fast. And anything that uses 0 ticks is just automatically satisfying in my book. The next one is an old classic, the Piston Extender, and I made this with my friend Mr. Puzzle. This one is a bit special because it's really, really fast. Yeah. All of those piston moves were done as fast as possible. And yes, this is all of the redstone. It's just pistons, observers, scaffolding, and cobblestone walls. That's it. That's all of the wiring in this build. Now, the extension does look a little bit weird, but there's a very, very good reason for that. Pistons can only push 12 blocks at a time. Any more than that, and it won't push. But you can get around that just by going back to front, which means this is infinitely expandable. So I went and made a 100 piston extender, and I also made it 12 blocks wide because this thing can do that. So here we go. It's gonna take a while for it to reach the pistons, and then it starts extending, and already it's lagging the hell out of my PC. My computer's pretty good, but even it can't handle this many piston movements at once. And there we go. All 100 pistons are extended. And what's even more satisfying is that we use the exact same piston sequence to retract it again. But to get a good view of it retracting, I'm gonna have to switch to replay mod. There's no way my computer's gonna render this properly. It's gonna be all glitchy and there's gonna be gaps inside it. So replay mod it is. This next build is a hidden end portal that I made with Game For You and Armadillo28. I made the piston setup for this, and then they did an amazing job making it super compact. So it is quite slow to open, but there's a very good reason for that. Opening an end portal is a really complicated job to do automatically with Redstone. There's so many things that need to happen because you can't just turn it on and off like a nether portal. You have to move blocks over it. There's no way around that, and you can't move the portal blocks or the portal frames. It has to all be slid over the top from the side. So that's what this thing is doing. It's displacing lots of the floor and then moving blocks around in a piston tape. It's just satisfying to watch, even if it is quite slow. Then we have this, which is another hidden redstone machine. Actually, most of these are hidden redstone machines. This one is a hidden staircase in the floor, but it's much wider than your average hidden staircase, so you can have a much bigger entrance to the room underneath. And then when we're done in here, we can just close it back up again, and it has this really satisfying wave animation. And just like that piston extender from earlier, this thing is infinitely expandable. I've just made it 20 blocks wide here, but if you really wanted to, then you could make a 300 wide hidden staircase. And then we have this thing, which you've probably seen before if you watch my channel regularly. I made it with my friends Spacewalker and Sacred Redstone. It's the former fastest 6x6 piston door. And yeah, it's not the fastest anymore, but it's still very satisfying, although it does lag my game a lot. So I'm going to jump into replay mod to get some nice smooth shots. Okay, Editor Purplers here. You have no idea how long it took me to get these shots to look this smooth. I basically had to slow the game down 64 times and then speed it up in post, but the results are so worth it because you can actually see what's going on. This is what it would look like if it didn't lag the game so much. And just everything from the speed to the animation to the redstone itself is just so satisfying to look at. And probably the most satisfying thing I've ever made, in my opinion, is this. It's my wither killer that spawns 72,000 withers per hour. So let's go in here, turn the machine on, and then I just have to place soul sand in this gap. Now, from this angle, it doesn't look like much, so I need to go into free cam to show you what's going on. And yeah, it's pretty diabolical. It's just funneling soul sand and wither skulls into this cage and then spawning them and trapping them and killing them. And there's this endless stream of soul sand. It's like a river. And then over here, this is just a giant waterfall, and it's just all being funneled by this evil machine into the wither chamber. It's so satisfying to watch, but at the same time, it's so evil. I can't actually believe that I made this without even feeling bad about it. Are there any other builds of mine that you think I missed? Well, let me know in the comments. Subscribe.